Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandana Parthavatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Maha. All the Upanishads are likened to a cow. Krishna is a cowherd boy. Arjuna is a calf. People of purified intellects are the drinkers of the milk. And the milk is the supreme nectar called the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 5, verse 16. But in the case of those of whom that ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of the self, that knowledge of theirs, like the sun, reveals the supreme. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitamatmanaha tesham adityavat jnanam prakashayati tatparam. This verse comes after the Lord speaking about taking responsibility for everything we do, for our actions and thoughts. We generally have the tendency of pushing the blame on other people, not taking responsibility for our own actions and our thoughts. And for most people, religion means there should be some miracles. What is religion without miracles? Some agency comes and lifts you up, and there you are saved. And people want miracles. In fact, Swami Vivekananda, when he was here in the US, people will say, "Show us a miracle or shut up." What is religion? What is metaphysics and what is this high philosophy without miracles? And it's always like that there is a suspension in the natural laws which are in your favor. How is that? Here. So apart from everything else that these seekers of truth want to dispense with, this also goes away with it. When you come down to the pure essence of this metaphysical doctrine, now there is always the charge leveled against the Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes it speaks about duality. Sometimes it speaks about qualified non-duality. Sometimes it speaks of non-duality, pure non-duality. And it speaks about karma, it speaks about bhakti, it speaks about jnana, it speaks about yoga, it speaks about every single doctrine that has ever been formulated by the human mind. The Vedic religion is a vast storehouse. It's not just one single book, multiple books. So there are multiple doctrines, and Sri Krishna, in his role as the harmonizer of all paths, did a wonderful work. He accomplished this by bringing in all the threads of all the doctrines and weaving them out in a beautiful, you can say, tapestry, a beautiful, you can say, design. So you have Advaita and Dvaita and Vishuddha-dvaita, even rituals, even pranayama, nothing is kept away from the Bhagavad Gita. And what does the Bhagavad Gita does? It gives us a higher vision of that particular thing. This is the background of some of those people who say there's a contradictory meanings here. We always remember that the human mind, or human life also, in fact everything, is a mixture of knowledge and ignorance. Jnana and ajnana. And the more we know, the more we do not know. Yes, this is that great contradiction in our lives. We know, at the same time we do not know. And this is more, you can say, dominant in knowledge which is externalized. Everybody thought, now we know, and that is the insolence of knowledge also. Now we have come to the end of knowledge. Now we know what the world is made of. We know everything, what life is made of. We know everything. Oh, really? And then ignorance comes and makes ingress into our bastions of knowledge, and then we are left confounded. What? We thought we knew. No. And this is the reason why this knowledge and ignorance, this life, world, everything is a mixture of everything. That's the reason why if you want to know the reality, take up the smallest thing. Take up an atom, take up a grain of sand, take up a flower, take up anything. There is knowledge and ignorance. There is a complementarity of knowledge and ignorance. There you are. You think you know, and tomorrow something else comes and dispenses all those kind of those ideas about knowledge. So what is real? Reality transcends both knowledge and ignorance. Until unless, what happens, we have a pride in knowledge also, I think. And we have pride in ignorance also. If you want to see selfishness, egotism, you can say hate, and all these things, it is the narrowing of, you can say, knowledge. So there are actually not two things. Actually, there's one thing. One, when knowledge is contracted, when knowledge becomes small, it becomes ignorance. And when it expands, it becomes knowledge. Love and hate are not two things. Love, when it is expressed, is love. When it contracts to only selfish desires, and you can say, it's meant for me, then it becomes ignorance, hate, love. Everything in this world is actually one, either expanded or contracted. So there are no two things like knowledge and ignorance. We started off with this premise. When you come down to it, there is knowledge when it's becoming expanded. And the same thing, when it's getting contracted, becomes ignorance. Now, this knowledge of the reality, as I was saying, we have in Vedanta two things, you can say. Knowledge is covered by ignorance. Ajnanena avritam jnanam. Like, metaphorically speaking, knowledge is covered by ignorance. Now, what does ignorance does is, it makes the unreal real and the real unreal. It makes the manifest unmanifest and the unmanifest manifest. This is the contradiction in our lives. It constantly deludes you. So wherever you have a contraction of knowledge, which is called ignorance, you will always find you cannot put your finger and say, I know it. I know it completely. There is no one who can say, I know a grain of sand completely. There is no one who can say, I know everything that is there in a biological cell. It's constantly being, the knowledge is constantly being developed, pushed. The frontiers are just immense. So the Lord here is saying, when does the whole thing, you can say, end? Because as long as we have this contraction and expansion, we have knowledge and we have ignorance, we will be subject to repeated births. It is only on the rise of the knowledge of the self when everything is dissipated. Like you can say in a tornado. A tornado is whipping up, you can say, materials. The wind comes in, runs around in a vortex and pulls up things. And after some time, after it's run out of, you can say, heat or steam or whatever, and then everything is as it was, which has left a trail of destruction. We are, while living in this world, we are also leaving a trail. It may not be apparent, it's like we are leaving a carbon print of whatever you do. This guy has done nothing in life, but he's left a trail of trash behind him. Yeah, living entails trash. Look at that. So we also have left a long trail in the realm of the mind. Oh yes, we are not new. So when will this whole thing end? With the knowledge of the reality. So here is saying, how will that point come when there is a cessation of transmigration of this constant, you can say, experiences. From the lowest to the highest, we have been experiencing things, and we are going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher experiences. But if we are caught in that duality, the duality which is love and hate, good and bad, joy and sorrow, positive and negative, etc., we will be simply like, as I say, running between two poles. We'll have to come out of this whole, you can say, trap. And this is a trap. What's a trap? Duality. And what's duality? Yeah, knowledge and ignorance. And what really is ignorance? It's a contraction of knowledge. And now it makes sense. But in the case of those of whom this ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of the self, that knowledge of theirs, like the sun reveals the supreme. Tesham adityavat jnanam. Like the sun. Sun, it's a kind of symbol. It's a beautiful symbol. And all cultures everywhere in the world have used the sun as a symbol. So you have that light. Why? Because it is self-luminous. Like the sun that dispels all darkness, so this knowledge of the self will dispel all our, you can say, ignorance, as well as the knowledge of duality, the all ordinary knowledge. It's called Vishaya Buddhi. The knowledge of, you can say, objects. Now this is the highest metaphysical point where a person can ever reach in in an embodied state. Yes. The person can get this supreme knowledge through the knowledge of the self. So, jnanena tu tad ajnanam yesham, ye those to those yesham, nashitam atmana. So, but in the case of those of whom that knowledge is destroyed by the knowledge of the self, that knowledge of theirs, like the sun, reveals the supreme. So, we have, what is this knowledge? Yeah. Right now, all our, you can say, knowledge is mainly subconscious and a little of conscious knowledge. What is subconscious knowledge? It's a sea of all these past experiences that we have had that are living like crystallized form. But they are not inert. They are very dynamic inside. So our knowledge, our state of knowledge, the knowledge of the things around is a mixture of consciousness and subconsciousness. So we are caught in that loop, and this conscious knowledge becomes, after a moment, subconscious. So there's a sea of subconscious knowledge. There is consciousness which is just a kind of is more like an illusion. We are conscious of it now, and in the next moment it has become past. It has gone in the past. So it's like just a flicker. The present is just like a flicker. It has become the past. Okay, it's a long, you can say, story, but let's cut it. There is a part of the mind also which has superconsciousness, which we have not been able to access. And all spiritual practices, all prayers, all meditation, everything is just to open that realm, that part of the mind which has been closed to you. When we are in this state of mind, we see the world as it is. It doesn't mean that a whale will see the world as it is, as we see it, or any other creepy, crawly, insects and birds and all. Their level of knowledge is different, in the sense, we're not talking about high and low. Their perception is different according to their perception of consciousness. How they perceive the world is how they, you can say, interact with it. And if we are perceiving it through a whole sea of subconsciousness and a little of consciousness, then we can understand this world is like this. This is the trap. We're talking about knowledge and ignorance. Where's the trap? This is the trap. It's in the mind. The world outside is not trapping you with anything. It's here inside. So, how do you come out of this trap? It is coming out of this subconsciousness and consciousness. People have been studying consciousness and yet not been able to identify what exactly. They talk about it as a soft problem and a hard problem. It's a hard problem of consciousness, especially David Chalmers and all these. But David Chalmers himself says, he proposes, yes, consciousness is first fundamental. Secondly, consciousness is universal. And amazingly, these scientists are arriving at such conclusions about consciousness. But we find consciousness is just limited to my body and my world. I have not come down to my fundamental level of consciousness, which is then, what is fundamental is universal. The fundamental in me and everything around. Fundamental means that, like the fundamental forces of nature. It's not only working in this parameter, it's working everywhere. So to come to this, you can say, experience, you'll have to open that higher mind, where the subject and object duality is dispensed with, or it simply falls away. In Vedanta, we have the knower, the known, and that which joins together, knowledge. Gyatri, Gneya, and Jnana. Knower, the object of knowledge, and that which connects, knowledge. Now, in one state of experience, all these three, the knower, the knowledge, and the object of knowledge, simply dissolves. Into what? Into that fundamental, universal consciousness. And that is like a sun. It's simply, like if the sun has to come in this room, you know what happens? Of course you get fried. The sun of knowledge. There was Hazra, a comical character who used to live there in Sri Ramakrishna. See, your knowledge is dry. Sri Ramakrishna, your knowledge is dry. Yeah, my knowledge is dry because I drink the nectar of the sun. Sun. So the sun is a symbol which transcends all these symbols of our life. It's a transcendent symbol. And so knowledge has been kind of encapsulated symbolically in this, the sun. It's not that the sun comes inside here. It will fry you, don't worry. So the sun of knowledge. And this is what happened. So it's destroyed. Ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of what? Of the self. What is the self? Yeah, that's another word for the Atman. Okay. What is the Atman? That is what it is. You do not know. And that's why Vedanta brings in, yeah, I told you. Ordinary knowledge is a complement of knowledge and ignorance. Do you know the Atman? No. Do you know yourself? A little. So it is, that's why I say, it is present. It is not an illusion. When you come down to the higher aspects of the mind, the super consciousness, then it becomes illusory. But as long as you are in this vyavharika, this relative existence, it is a tangible entity. It is there. At the same time, it has no permanent existence. Why? Because it is destroyed through knowledge. That's why it is impermanent. And seeing it has created this world. Who creates this world? That power of ignorance, Maya. Why ignorance? Why Maya? Because it obstructs the reality. As simple as that. Do you know the reality? No. What do you know? I know this world. Who's created this world? Ignorance, Maya, Prakriti, Avyakrita. This is then obstruction to knowledge. And as we keep on rising higher and higher and higher and higher, or expanding this knowledge, we will come to that stage where, as the Lord says, but in the case of those, regarding those who want to end this round of births and deaths, who do not make the Lord like the punching bag, The Lord is the punching bag. I go and punch, go and hit it. Why? Well, that guy is responsible for all these things. No. You are responsible for everything. What about you? So once you have taken the responsibility on yourself and you want to get away from this bondage of duality, of this spinning around in knowledge and ignorance, what happens is that ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of the Atman. And that knowledge of theirs, like the sun, reveals the Supreme. So that knowledge is then supreme knowledge. What is this supreme? In relation to what is not supreme. Right now, can we say that our knowledge is supreme knowledge? No. That's why the Upanishad says, I quote, and whoever amongst the gods knew it also became that. And the same with sages, and the same with men, humans, and to this day, whoever in like manner knows it as I am that, becomes all this universe. Right now, our universe is a body. When this knowledge arises, what will happen to you? You will be the universe. Really? My God. Oh, yeah, that is what knowledge will do. So your universe, which was so tiny, so small, like a grain of sand probably, or maybe even an atom, then suddenly becomes vast. It becomes a universe. That is supreme knowledge. So right now we are in this state of non-supreme knowledge, ignorance. So this is the test. The more you feel expanded, the more you feel the universe is you. That is supreme knowledge. And that, as I say, is the knowledge of the self. This was a little metaphysical, a lot. It was completely metaphysical. Don't be upset with all these things and don't run away from this thing, because one day you'll have to arrive at that knowledge. So the next verse, 17th verse, chapter 5, verse 17, is now going to lead us up to that, and then will tell us what is the result of that knowledge. Tadbuddhyasthadatmanas tannishta tatparayanaha gacchantya punaravrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. I'll take the second verse first. That is the supreme goal. They attain the state of no return. Their dirt having been removed by knowledge. Gachanti is prapnovanti. That is, they attain. Not just go, they attain. What do they attain? Apunaravrittim. The state of non-return. What do you mean non-return? Oh, well, you go and you come back again. As long as there is that duality of knowledge and ignorance. Relative knowledge and relative ignorance. So as long as that ignorance is there, you'll have to go and you have to come. Oh yes, we have gone and come many times, don't worry. Like this door here, no, the temple. We have gone in and come out many times. Do we remember all that? No. It's like that only. You have gone and come many times. So you will attain the state of no return. Apunaravrittim. By what? Through what? Jnana nirdhuta kalmasha. Their sins, their faults, all their relative, you can say, ideas of existence have been washed away by knowledge. Their dirt having been removed by knowledge. So, who are these people? Tad buddhyas tadatmanas tannishta tatparayana. Those who have the intellect absorbed in that. Tat. What is tat? Om tat sat. Om, that existence. That. Well, that, what do you mean that? Not this. That. This, that. What is that? That is the truth. Om tat sad iti nirdesha brahmanas trividaspita. So, Om, Tat and Sat are the names of Brahman. The Bhagavad Gita will tell us. So, those who have their intellect absorbed in that, whose self is that, tadatmanas, tannishta, who are steadfast in that, to whom that is the supreme goal, tatparayana. Oh yeah, you know. So the first, tat buddhi, the buddhi, the intelligence. What is that intelligence? Intelligence is a mixture of consciousness and intelligence, that which looks outside and understands things. That is one of the closest things to pure consciousness. That pure consciousness is reflected in it. And the process of knowing in in yoga psychology is, when I see this mic, my mind, the wave in my mind takes the form of this. All knowledge is this. My mind has to take that form of that object, only then I know. And if this mic is here and my mind does not take the form of this, I will not be able to perceive it. So the whole philosophy of yoga starts with controlling the waves of the mind. The buddhi, the antakarna, mind, takes the form of that. It's constantly taking form, this, all these things. You must understand that Indian philosophy puts mind as a cause of physical matter. In the physical matter, a material is a derivative of the mind. The mind comes first. Creation starts with the mind. Gods, he chanted Om, and he reflected on the past creation and it flashed in his mind, and through that Om, this whole creation emerged like a tree emerging out of the seed. Where did a seed come from? The previous tree. So there is no starting point, no ending point. It's just manifest, non-manifest, manifest, not manifest. So in Indian psychology and philosophy and metaphysics, whatever you like to say, the mind comes first, then matter. In all the other types of knowledges, matter first comes first and then mind. But whichever way you like, which comes first, a chicken or egg, it does not matter. The mind is influenced by this external world, first by taking its form. That is called a chitta vritti, the wave in the mind. How does it operate? It's like a pool of water or a pond of, it's very limpid and placid and calm, and you throw a pebble in it. What happens? You'll have ripples. And suppose you keep on throwing more and more pebbles, you'll have more and more ripples. And each ripple, they will kind of intersect. And then you will have all this kind of patterns, intersecting patterns, interference patterns. The antakarna, the inner instrument, is something like this. It takes the form of whatever it is thrown inside. So when your antakarna, the inner instrument, takes the form of tat, that, how does it take the form of that? The mind is limited, like this, and that is unlimited. Yes, you start with this idea of shravana, manana, nididhyasa, hearing, thinking about it, and meditating on the truth. On what? On the words of the Upanishads, which speak of it indirectly. So your mind takes that form of that knowledge, which is indirect knowledge. And then slowly the indirect knowledge leads you to the direct knowledge. Tad buddhyas tad atmanas. So he's saying, those who have the intellect absorbed in that, so intellect at that moment is not absorbed, is not engrossed in thinking of the body, the senses, the objects, the mind, and all these things. It is absorbed in that. This is actually what meditation should be doing to you. When you are meditating on Sri Ram Krishna goes there, and then after some time, Sri Ram Krishna goes there. And then sometimes he goes there, sometimes he says, okay, see you. And then you are looking at Ram Krishna has disappeared. What happened? Ram Krishna or Devi or Shiva or whatever. Oh, you are meditating and then Ram Krishna has gone. You are meditating on something. What happened? And you fall asleep. And most of meditation is falling asleep only. So what happened to the Ram Krishna? Your mind has not taken the form of Ram Krishna. If the mind has taken the form of Ram Krishna, you will not fall asleep. The Ram Krishna will not run away from here and there. So when you meditate on Sri Ram Krishna, your mind takes the form of Sri Ram Krishna. That is what the whole process is. Oh, Ram Krishna sometimes goes here and goes there. No, that will not do. You start probably like that. You see Sri Ram Krishna's leg or his hand or head. When you close your eyes, you must be able to visualize Sri Ram Krishna. Even ordinarily, when you're going about doing all work, you always have that picture of Ram Krishna as it was superimposed on this. That vritti, that mental mode becomes predominant. The rest of the world becomes a kind of a distant, a shadow type. This is real. And then when you sit down to meditate, the whole thing lights up. So until and unless your mind does not take the form of that which you meditate on, goodbye. Then you run for miracles. Ramakrishna will he'll perform a miracle. Good luck for that. So tad buddhis is that. When your mind takes the form of that which you are contemplating very deeply on, that knowledge which is still limited because it is a form of the intellect, then becomes tadatmas. Then it becomes a complete absorption. So how does it happen? Yeah, this morning we were talking about, camphor. When you burn it, it sublimates. It goes straight and disappears. That which was there disappears. So there is that vritti, that mental mode, that is overpowered, as it were, or melts, as it were, into that ocean of pure consciousness. It's like you throw a ice cube in water. What happens? It will stay in for some time and then melt in and become like. So that vritti, that mental mode, then melts, merges into that Atman. In Tat is that. Tad buddhis, tadatmana, tannishtha, tatparayana. And how do these two, tannishtha and tatparayana, are the means to this first, you can say, states. Steadfast. One has to be steadfast in this. I will meditate tomorrow, and after 5 days I will say, oh, I have not meditated for 5 days. I should meditate now 5 days. No, you meditate. You have to have a kind of a steady plodding, a steady kind of, you can say, movement. That steadiness has to become part of your character. What you do today will have to be done tomorrow and day after. Then you create a loop of steadfastness. It's a nishtha. Shtha, to stay, to get established in that. So when you are you have steadfastness, you're steadfast in that, all your goals, your life and everything gets reoriented towards. So this is very important. This is the means, tan nishtha. And what? Tatpara. When will that nishtha, when will that steadiness come? When for you, tat, that is your supreme, you can say, goal. Tad, nishtha, tat, para is supreme, ayana is a goal. When that becomes your supreme goal, then you're going to steadfastly work towards it. If that is not your goal, you will not work. Even an ordinary goal, see how you have to work for it? You will have to day after day after day after inch, crawl, not even, yeah. Saying spiritual life is so hard. Really? You haven't even started crawling. They are sitting down, spiritual life is so hard, yeah. Start crawling, I say. And then start crawling. Where do you crawl? Yeah, what do you want? You want the vision of Sri Ramakrishna? Yeah. Okay, now that is your supreme goal. Tat parayana. Make that yourself. And then you are steadfast in that. I'm meditating, but that guy is, I think he's looking at me. And I wonder what's there on the freeway. It's not like that. That grips you. That goal grips you, and you get energized by that. And then you are, as it were, pulled, and you want more and more and more and more. People, they know that particular thing is wrong, a guy who, take a crude example, an alcoholic. The guy, he knows very well, this thing is destroying me, but he cannot leave it. And that thing will slowly destroy. Obviously. And not only before it destroys that guy, it destroys everything around that guy. This is with any end. Now get intoxicated with something good. Yes, God realization. And that God realization, that idea, first will destroy all your attachments around you, and then makes you slowly proceed towards that, step by step by step by step by step, and there you end in that tat. So those who have the intellect absorbed in that, whose self is that, who are steadfast in that, to whom that is a supreme goal, then what happens? They attain the state of no return. Their dirt having been removed by knowledge. What is a dirt? Is it dirty? No, dirt of ignorance is removed by that knowledge which is like the sun. Okay. The result of this, when that person whose antakaran, the inner instrument, takes the form of that, okay, like you open your eyes, you see the form of Sri Ramakrishna, mental. It's like, suppose we are all sitting here, suppose I tell you, can you visualize the freeway? You can. You've seen the freeway hundreds of times. You are sitting here and visualizing the freeway. But you are also here and listening to all these things. So there is that two streams of consciousness. So that is what we need to do. Tat parayana, tat nishtha. We are here, but we are thinking of Sri Ramakrishna. Where? Thinking of the mind has taken the form of Ramakrishna. And at the same time, can you operate? Yes, you can operate with this, in this world. Later on, of course, Ramakrishna will take over. Yeah. There is an incident. Sri Ramakrishna was in Balram Bose's house in Calcutta. They had come to visit all the devotees, and all devotees had come. And Swami Vivekananda also was there. And after their lunch and all and that and all, I don't know, Swami Vivekananda was resting, and his face was against a kind of wall and his back was towards the hall. The wall. And suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna comes and sleeps beside him. And Swamiji, he says, "Look, look, look! The old man is entering into me." In English. And Sri Ramakrishna said, you think I don't understand that? I'm going to enter into you. So, if you say, where's Sri Ramakrishna? Let Sri Ramakrishna in by thinking of him. And if you say, no, no, not now, later, no, he's not going to listen to you. He's going to enter you. And if you say it in Sanskrit or French or English, he knows. He's saying, what do you think? I don't know. I'll enter into you. That is how Sri Ramakrishna enters. Actually, the more you let him in, the more you'll enter. And this is what transforms, makes you feel Sri Ramakrishna Tat is the supreme goal. You become steadfast in that, and then your mind takes the form of Ramakrishna, and slowly Ramakrishna takes over your soul. Tad Atmanam. And then what? What knowledge? What is that knowledge? You know, there are a couple of instances where Jatadhari was there, a sadhu with a long matted. He used to worship a statue of Rama. But people used to think it was just a statue. It was a metallic statue, made of metal, 8 metals, Ashtadhatu. But he used to see it as living. Even Gopale Ruma, she used to see Sri Krishna as a baby boy moving around and all. At one stage of knowledge, both Jatadhari, the sadhu with the matted locks, and Golapma, they saw the universal form of Rama, and in the case of Gopalirma, that of Krishna. So here, what happens when Sri Ramakrishna has possessed you all, your character, your mind, your life and everything. What is the perception? This is the perception. How does that person live? Because you say, that was speaking about that stage where everything is over. This is the state of Jivan Mukti. In case your prarabdha karma, the karma that has been let loose on your birth, has not been exhausted, and in the middle you get knowledge, this is what happens. The learned ones see that same Brahman in a Brahmin endued with learning and humility, in a cow, in an elephant, and even in a dog, as well as an eater of dog's meat, of course. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shunichaiva swapakecha panditaha samadarshinaha. It's beautiful. Swami Vivekananda says, I believe in same-sightedness in one of his life. Because people, they were criticizing him. You are not doing this, you are not doing that, you are not doing properly. So he's saying, I believe in same-sightedness. And you see all their lives were that same-sightedness. One time, Sri Ramakrishna, there were some devotees from Calcutta, women who had come, and they were sitting down, all high class. And then Sri Ramakrishna, I don't know what, maybe he wanted to scandalize them, saying, hello Ramani, it's been a long time since I've seen you. The woman was scandalized. Ramani was that local prostitute. Everybody knew her. My God, Sri Ramakrishna also knows. Then he says, I see that the Divine Mother has taken this form. For him, the Divine Mother had taken all these forms. So here you have a person when he's in that state, supreme state of knowledge, what happens? He will see the same thing, that same Brahman, and that person will come same-sightedness. In what? In the learned one, the Pandita, they see that same reality in a Brahmin who has Vedic knowledge and is imbued with humility. Yeah, I was fortunate that I have seen some of these people. Oh my God, these are the living gods. People criticize, what this kind of. All their life was suffering. All their life was denial. But that suffering and that denial made them godlike. They were really like gods. Their behavior, everything. So people used to kind of treat them like gods, worship them. It's not like, these kind of Brahmins, they are useless, they're this, and nowadays they have become little useless like that. But they were godlike people. Yes, you wanted to know God, see God? Look at these people. Tremendous nishtha, that is steadfastness. Tremendous, you can say, unswerving devotion to that. So these people, these learned people who are like godlike, how can you compare that with a cow, an elephant, a dog, and an eater of a dog? But the person who has attained to this knowledge will see no difference between this and that. Oh yes. This is the state of Jivan Mukti. It is a long, you can say, explanations required for this. But it does not matter, We can understand this. You'll say the same thing. Shri Ramakrishna, in his gospel, you find, in Great Master also, he's saying, I'm seeing the same consciousness everywhere. He's saying, I see that consciousness wriggling in a fish. There. Oh my God. Fish? Wriggling? Yeah. So that consciousness is everywhere. There are these monks. Once, I won't tell you about it, but as if after a heavy rain, everything is soaked. The trees, the earth, everything is soaked in water. Similarly, people see that consciousness soaking everything, inside, outside, everything. They do not see the Brahmin, the cow, the elephant, and the dog, and the eater of the dog. No, they see that. This is the state of Jivan Mukti, free while living. This is the supreme state of knowledge, beyond all relative knowledge and ignorance. We'll stop here for today. We'll continue from next sloka, next verse, next Thursday. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Namastu.
You have a question on race?
Yeah.
Okay. So, is the knowledge of the self the light that destroys ignorance?
Yes, the knowledge of the self is a universal self, always remember, and it destroys all the ignorance connected with you and everything. So that Atman is Sat and Chit and Ananda. That which is existence, that which is not. It is existence, that which is existence is consciousness, and that which is consciousness is bliss. This is the real nature of the Atman. So when you attain the Atman, you attain to that universal existence, consciousness, bliss.
There's another question I couldn't really understand, but is this knowledge equal to the search of the divine influence every day?
Oh no. This knowledge is far transcends anything. Like imagine now the sun comes in the room. So like the sun of knowledge comes in. What happens? Well, divine influence, everything. You will see the whole universe as the self. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.